In this video, I'll be examining a few of Ridley Scott's films that he's directed throughout the decades, and I'll be taking a closer look at his lighting style as well as his use of color palettes chosen for these films. In films, lighting and color palettes are usually intentional and are controlled on set during production. First, I'll briefly discuss what they both are. Lighting a shot is an art and is very essential to filmmaking, and with many different techniques to light a shot, there are numerous atmospheric outcomes to be gained. Just like light does, shadows play a prominent role in filmmaking, and it's with these shadows we get a sense of feel for what the directors are trying to accomplish in their films. Color palettes are a limited number of specific colors which are used in a film to convey various aspects of a character and story to the viewer. They visually can communicate emotions as well as also connote things symbolically. Color palettes consist of many aspects, starting with pre-production with the set design, costumes, props, and in post-production with color grading to finesse the final image. First, I'll be looking at the color palette and lighting techniques in one of his earlier films, the sci-fi Blade Runner. This film is praised for the amount of dedication which Ridley Scott and cinematographer Jordan Cronenweth went into to light each one of these scenes. The film takes place in a futuristic 2019 dystopian Los Angeles. During the majority of the movie, a major theme is the non-stop rain that doesn't seem to end, and this is to show a sense of despair, pollution, and creates ambience throughout. Scott uses ample amounts of fluorescent neon in his films, such as in clubs or on building storefronts, but famously known for the umbrella poles, which seem a bit dangerous in the rain, but cannot be denied it looks cool. This scene, however, when the main character Deckard interrogates the replicant Rachel in Tyrell's corporation, is one of the only scenes when the sun is quite present. While most of the movie has a mysterious blue tinge, this scene is quite the opposite, with a warmest yellow feel to it. In this shot, Deckard is lit from the back, casting a halo effect around him, which shoots his protagonist's role. Deckard then ironically states, "It's too bright in here." The shade is pulled down and the mysterious blue-tinted lighting comes back. This lights Deckard from the front and Rachel from behind. However, in this film, we rarely see people's face completely lit, such as on Deckard's face after his test on Rachel. Half his face is strongly lit from the side, while the other half is cast in shadows. The color palette throughout this film is mainly a combination of the two complementary colors yellow and blue. Like here, when Deckard is wrapped in a blue blanket and his apartment ceiling is a tad yellowish, and then looking out from his balcony, there are loads of yellow and blue neon lights in the distance. Then we cut to Pris, who's roaming the streets, and again we see the same color palette, yellow construction stripes and blue street lights. Even the police lights on the cop car are yellow and blue. However, in this scene, Scott uses candlelight or some suggestion to it to illuminate Tyrell's very ornate room. This gives everything a redness that fits in with the moment when Batty arrives and destroys his maker. The room becomes more of a cave than some swish apartment in a mega skyscraper. This is very different from the yellow and blue colors typically used in the film, but the red glow from the candles is very appropriate for the scene and definitely suits and goes well with the blood caused by the eerie eye gouging part. In this film, light can represent illumination and also invasion and interrogation, but it's with the use of these lights that Scott gives us those subtle highlights and magnificent shadows that gives Blade Runner its distinct look and feel to it. Next, we'll move on to Ridley Scott's debatably one of his most famous films, Black Hawk Down, which is based on the Battle of Mogadishu in Somalia in 1993. Scott worked together with Polish cinematographer Sławomir Idzik to give his film a tremendous color palette that breaks down most of the normal conventions for war films. One thing they do stick to for modern war movies is the beach bypass look, which was done by color grading and post-production. This makes for a dirty, gritty feel for the image, which has high contrast and a really desaturated look to it. First, we start off with the landscape of Somalia's desert. It's a brownish orange and not a typical golden sand color, which implies a sense of distraught and danger. Black tire smoke is a common theme in this film, which contaminates the sky and connotes trouble. Compare this to the steel barracks that the US soldiers are stationed in. They are lit by cool blue halogen lights, which suggest coldness and unfamiliarity. However, this is another example of the normal conventions being broken. Usually warm tones show a calming and relaxed atmosphere, but not in this film. This scene is when a soldier calls his wife before going out on the mission. It is color graded in post-production for a very desaturated look. There's hardly any color in any of these shots compared to the rest of the film. It almost feels like a dream of something in the past that's too far out to grab. This is done to show the vast amount of distance between the soldiers and their loved ones back at home, and to convey emotion about the soldiers' lives that they left to come serve for their country. Then, when the soldiers enter the brightly lit Mogadishu, the mission begins. That's when all the trouble starts, and the nice warm orangey tones that are usually supposed to be comforting are now dangerous. The conventions to this color palette are flipped around, and they're not what the viewers are used to. After tremendous gunfire, lots of gory bloodshed, and a couple Black Hawks down, some of the soldiers find shelter in an abandoned building because they are the first to start setting up a perimeter for the first Black Hawk down. Here we have another cool blue lighting scheme. The lighting is coming through the windows and the holes in the walls. Since we have again a bluish tone here, we know that the soldiers are somewhat safer here than outside with the enemies in the brownish orange heat. With the mission taking longer than expected, the day turns to night, and instead of a traditional bluish moonlight, Scott has chosen to take a completely different approach by making it eerie green. There are no blue tones present here. Blue suggests safety, and the safety is once again gone. The constant explosions and numerous fires provide an excellent source of light and create a warm orange tone, which again represent danger. The soldiers fight through the night and into the dawn, which happens to be blue. Safety is returning once again. The soldiers are left to run back to base on foot, as there is not enough room in the convoys. This is the last stretch before making it safe and sound back to the base, and as soon as they arrive there, the color palette returns to the regular conventions, and everything turns back to its normal hue. Finally, we look at one of Ridley Scott's more recent films, Prometheus. Scott shot this film in 3D on a prototype red cinema camera with Polish cinematographer Dariusz Wolski. Prometheus is based in the future and is about a team of explorers and their expedition to a planet far away to discover new life. Although the story plot isn't amazing, the visuals undoubtedly are. In this scene, the explorers are getting briefed on their mission by characters Peter Wayland and Vickers, who are funding the expedition. Notice how the colors of their suits are visually consistent with the background, and they fit in perfectly. This is because the wardrobe choices were made to work thematically with the colors of everything on set. Then in this scene, we see the recurring yellow and blue color palette again, that Scott seems to like so much. Motion graphics were used to simulate a holographic computer operating system. It glows a strong limeish yellow color, and has other small images on it, which most are a complementary light blue. Or in this scene where the main character Shaw is speaking to the captain of the ship. The lighting from this room gives off strong yellow tones with subtle hints of blue from their suits and the monitors on the cabinets. The yellowish tone here is very strong, but compared to the cool blue lighting in the hallway, this separates the two different areas as well as works together with the color palette. Another example of the color palette is the video camera interface from the character's spacesuits that relays back to the ship. They are also yellow and blue. Or how about the spacesuits themselves? They are dark blue, and attached inside the helmets are bright fluorescent yellow lights. Besides the color palette, this was because most of the big sets were lit minimally because they wanted loads of mysterious shadows. This is why they are holding flashlights most of the time, and these helmet lights would also allow the viewer to see the characters' faces. In this scene where David is talking to Dr. Holloway, from behind the scenes footage we can tell these shots are lit from many different places, including above as well as from behind with the bright lights on the wall. It is well lit, but compared to the shots from the movie, it seems really dark. This was done intentionally by colorist Steven Nakamura in post-production. He crushed down the blacks with color grading software DaVinci Resolve. He also enhances colors with more saturation to both of their green shirts and the blue from the pool table. Ridley Scott's lighting technique and use of color palette differs from film to film. Depending on the atmosphere or mood he's trying to create, he does this by his unique lighting style and use of shadows. He also uses color palettes to break conventions and tell a story of its own. Even though it takes many people to work to get his film made, Ridley Scott is definitely an auteur because he's a dedicated director and he does an extensive amount of preparation for each one of his films.